It was just past 2 a.m. when the front door creaked open, but I was already awake, sitting in the half-dark living room with a cup of cold coffee in my hands. The glow from the streetlights outside sliced through the blinds in long, sterile lines across the carpet. I hadn't planned on staying up. Truth is, I'd gone to bed around midnight, but sleep hadn't come. My mind was restless. Pacing. Something had been gnawing at me all day. Maybe all week. Lana stepped in like a breeze, light, effortless. Her heels clicked against the hardwood floor, and I caught the faint scent of her perfume even before she reached the hallway. It was a new scent, something floral and sharp, not the kind she usually wore. She stood there in the entryway, radiant in a thin champagne-colored dress that shimmered faintly under the dim light. Her lipstick was fresh, not smudged or faded. Her eyes were done in a way I hadn't seen since our last anniversary dinner. "Hey," she said, almost surprised to see me. "You're up." I nodded slowly, not moving from the couch. "Couldn't sleep." She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Flight was delayed. You know how it goes." She walked past me toward the coat rack, except she didn't hang up her coat. She tossed it over the armchair without looking. That's when it happened. A small, folded piece of paper fluttered from her coat pocket and landed on the floor like a leaf in autumn. Lana froze for a split second, just a moment, but I saw it. She knelt down casually, scooped it up with 2 fingers, and crumpled it lightly before slipping it into her purse. "What was that?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Oh," she said with a breezy shrug. "Just a receipt from the airport bar. Had a glass of Prosecco while I waited." Her tone was light, dismissive. She didn't offer to show me. She didn't look guilty either. If anything, she seemed rehearsed. I said nothing. Just stared at her. My eyes had caught enough of that paper to know it wasn't just a glass. I saw the numbers: 2 Proseccos, 1 dessert. The name of the place was romantic, European sounding. Something like La Lure. Not the kind of place you'd K*LL time in while scrolling your phone in an airport terminal. She slipped off her heels and walked into the kitchen like it was any other night. Opened the fridge. Poured herself water. "Denver was good?" I asked, pretending to sound neutral. She leaned against the counter. "Yeah, meetings ran long, but we got through everything. Might have to go back next quarter." I watched her closely. The dress. The hair. The barely there tan line on her shoulder, something I wouldn't have noticed if I hadn't been looking for something to notice. There was a time I would have taken all this at face value. I would have trusted her. But lately, trust had started to feel like an old jacket that didn't fit right anymore. I couldn't quite name why. Maybe it was how distant she'd become, how often she worked late, how she'd changed her phone's lock screen and stopped leaving it face up on the table. Or maybe it was just instinct. That animal gut feeling you get when the balance shifts in a room and the air suddenly feels heavier. She came back into the living room, glass in hand, and perched on the arm of the couch like it was some casual Saturday morning. "You look tired," she said. "You should try to get some sleep." I didn't answer right away. I was too busy thinking about the way her voice had changed when she mentioned the bar. Too light. Too quick. Like someone skipping over a crack in the pavement, hoping no one saw. "You didn't bring back your suitcase," I said. She blinked. "Oh yeah, I left it in the car. Too tired to haul it in tonight. I'll grab it tomorrow." Another beat passed. Another puzzle piece clicked into place. She reached over and gave my hand a gentle squeeze. "We should take a trip, you and me. Somewhere quiet. Maybe the mountains." I nodded again, but my mind wasn't on the mountains. It was on the receipt. The glasses. The dessert. The way she'd picked it up without asking if I saw it because she knew I did. She went upstairs and I stayed there, unmoving, staring at the coat on the chair and trying to remember what Prosecco tastes like. I couldn't. It had been years since we'd ordered anything like that together. The sound of the shower starting upstairs echoed faintly through the vents. I closed my eyes and leaned back on the couch, but sleep felt 100 miles away. That night I didn't confront her. I didn't demand answers or toss accusations into the air. Instead, I stayed quiet. I listened. I observed. But something inside me shifted subtly, almost imperceptibly, like a gear slipping out of place. I didn't know the full story yet, but I knew enough to feel the floor beneath me beginning to move. Morning brought no clarity, just a dull ache behind my eyes and a growing restlessness in my chest. Lana was already up when I came downstairs, standing at the kitchen island with her tablet and a cup of coffee, dressed in workout clothes that looked too crisp, too styled for someone who was just going to the gym. "Morning," she said without looking up. "Morning." I opened the fridge even though I wasn't hungry. My hand hovered over the orange juice, then dropped. I shut the door and turned around. "You going into work today?" I asked. She glanced at her watch, an old habit even though she hadn't worn one in years. Yeah. Just for a few hours. Need to catch up on some reports. She sipped her coffee. Then probably yoga later. Yoga. That was new. Or at least, new in the sense that it suddenly became part of her weekly schedule, specifically on Wednesdays and Fridays, right after she started working late and changing her perfume. I nodded, hiding the flicker of recognition that sparked in my brain. I was beginning to see the outlines of something like fog burning off a glass pane. At first, I thought it was me being paranoid, too sensitive. But it wasn't paranoia if it was a pattern. And I had patterns. The receipt from last night was just the first crack. Now the rest of the wall was showing stress lines. Like the lingerie. A soft, pale blue set I found while putting laundry away 2 weeks ago. She hadn't worn anything like that for me in months. Maybe longer. When I asked her about it, she shrugged and said she bought it on sale, felt like treating myself. She said it so casually, I almost believed it. Almost. Or the night 2 Fridays ago when she came home late, said she had a client dinner, then headed straight for the shower. Her makeup had already been wiped away, but I noticed the faint shadow of a lipstick line just under her jaw. She claimed it was irritation from a scarf. But she hadn't worn a scarf that night. It was 78 degrees outside. Then there was her phone. It used to light up freely on the kitchen counter, chirping with random notifications and Instagram tags. Now it lived face down, silent. The fingerprint scanner, once set to accept mine too, no longer responded to my touch. She told me it was a glitch after the last update. A glitch. Right? I sat on the couch while she left for work, still in that sleek black workout outfit, ponytail bouncing like it was part of a commercial. As soon as the door closed behind her, I exhaled, one of those long, quiet exhales that comes from a place of denial cracking under its own weight. It wasn't just the details. It was the way she moved through the house now. Always slightly rushed, slightly rehearsed. Her smile had edges. Her laugh, when it came, was always a beat too late. And then there was the absence. Not just physical, but emotional. She was there, but not really. And suddenly, I remembered the mark. A week ago, she reached for a dish on the top shelf and her sleeve lifted. A faint line across her wrist. Almost like a watch tan or the imprint of a strap. But she didn't wear a watch. Hadn't in years. Not since she switched to using her phone for everything. When I asked about it, she pulled her sleeve back down quickly. Oh, that? Must be from my hair tie, she said. But it was too wide to be a hair tie. I started scrolling through my mental archives, replaying little moments I hadn't paid attention to before. Like the phone calls she took in the backyard. Always in the backyard. Always ending just as I walked outside. Or the time she came back from a girls' night with perfectly styled hair and a barely open to-go box that smelled like fine dining, not bar food. I pulled out my own phone and opened the search bar. Boutique hotels. Romantic lounges. Coastal getaways near Denver. Nothing yet. Just vague guesses and educated hunches. But I knew I was on the edge of something real. A thread had been pulled loose and I couldn't stop tugging. I stood up and walked to the bedroom, heading straight for the laundry basket. Her gym clothes were there, some damp, some dry, all reeking of effort and sweat. But one shirt caught my eye. A white tank with no sweat stains, no scent of deodorant. It looked like it had been sprayed with perfume. I held it up to my nose. It was the same new floral scent. The one from last night. She wasn't working out. I sat on the edge of the bed, her tablet still lying on her nightstand. Password protected, of course. She'd changed it a few months back. Told me it was part of her company's new security policy. At the time, I didn't think much of it. Now it just felt like another wall. I knew I couldn't accuse her, not yet. Not without more. And besides, what would I even say? Did you enjoy your 2 glasses of Prosecco with someone who wasn't me? No. I needed proof. Not just for confrontation, but for clarity. For peace of mind. I wanted to be wrong. God, I wanted to be wrong. But every sign was pointing in one direction. And if I was right, I needed to prepare. By that afternoon, the air felt thicker. Lana came home around 6, dressed in a new blouse and skinny jeans, hair still damp. She kissed my cheek and went straight to her room to change. I didn't ask where she'd been. I just watched. Watched how she barely looked me in the eyes. Watched how she carried her purse with a strange tightness, like it contained something fragile or dangerous. I walked into the kitchen, opened the fridge, and stared blankly at the rows of food that suddenly felt pointless. Something had changed, and there was no unknowing it now. By Saturday morning, the tension had built into something I couldn't ignore anymore. It sat in my chest like a weight, pulling down everything, my mood, my energy, my ability to pretend. Lana was out for her long run, part of the new routine that had started about 6 weeks ago when everything else began to shift. The house was quiet. Too quiet. I stood in the hallway staring at the guest room door, which she had turned into a home office last fall. It wasn't locked. I walked in. Her laptop sat on the desk, lid slightly ajar. The screen had gone to sleep, but it wasn't powered off. I tapped the trackpad. It woke. She hadn't logged out. I don't know what I was expecting to find, maybe a browser history that proved nothing or emails that danced around the truth. But the universe doesn't deal in subtlety when you're finally ready to face it. It was right there, in her inbox. A reservation confirmation from 4 days ago. Not for Denver. Not for any conference or meeting or seminar. But for a boutique hotel on the coast. 2 guests. 3 nights. Ocean View Suite. The name of the hotel was one I recognized from a lifestyle article Lana shared with me months ago, saying we should go here sometime. Looks peaceful. She'd gone. Just not with me. My stomach turned as I clicked the attachment. It was a receipt, room service, spa charges, a sunset dinner for 2. Below that, a photo embedded in the confirmation email, Lana in a plush white robe, leaning against a balcony railing, head tilted back in laughter. And next to her, a man with his arm around her waist. He was turned slightly away, but I knew him. The bracelet gave it away, a thick leather band with a silver engraving I could never forget. I bought it as a gift years ago for a friend of mine. A colleague I'd worked with closely during a rough stretch at my old job. His name was Alex. Alex, who had transferred out of state but kept in touch loosely. Alex, who had commented on one of Lana's Instagram posts 6 months ago, a small thing I noticed but didn't think twice about. Alex, who had apparently re-entered her life without me knowing. I stared at the screen, barely breathing. The truth sat there like a cold stone on my chest. No more half-glimpses. No more theories. No more doubt. It was him. It was her. It was happening. And it wasn't just physical. That photo, the casual in asterisk Macy of it, was not a fling. That was comfort. Familiarity. Shared history. I pushed away from the desk, the chair rolling back on its wheels as I stood and walked out of the room. I felt numb, like I was moving through molasses. I made my way to the porch and sat down, the wood creaking under my weight. Birds chirped somewhere nearby. A lawnmower buzzed faintly a few houses down. The world carried on like it didn't know everything had just changed. Maybe it hadn't changed. Maybe it had just been exposed. I pulled my phone from my pocket and opened the photo app. Scrolled to a picture from last year, Lana and I on a weekend hike, arms wrapped around each other, sweat on our brows, happiness on our faces. We looked real. We looked like us. Was she already talking to him back then? Had she already chosen? I closed the app and leaned back, staring at the sky. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I didn't even speak. Instead, I felt the dull throb of acceptance. This was it. This was the proof I couldn't ignore, couldn't explain away. Every missed call, every late night, every changed password, now it all made sense. When Lana returned an hour later, flushed from her run, she greeted me with a quick kiss on the head. I didn't flinch. I didn't smile. I just said, "You look tired." She laughed softly. It was a long route. I think I pushed too hard. I nodded. Maybe take it easy tomorrow. She agreed, grabbed a water from the fridge, and disappeared upstairs to shower. And I sat there, feeling like a guest in my own life. The rest of the day moved in slow motion. She made lunch. We watched a show. She talked about redecorating the guest bathroom. I listened, nodding at the right times, responding just enough to seem present. But I wasn't there. I was still on that balcony in the photo, standing just outside the frame, watching them laugh together like I never existed. That night, when she was asleep, I returned to the laptop. Screensh asterisk Ted everything. The emails. The reservations. The photo. The names. I uploaded them to a cloud folder labeled, just in case. Then I pulled out the external drive I used for work backups and created a new file, fact. It felt clinical. Cold. But I needed it. This wasn't about revenge. Not yet. Maybe not ever. This was about being sure. About not allowing myself to second-guess anymore. I opened my calendar app and created a fake appointment for Monday morning, legal consult. It was a placeholder. A promise to myself. When I returned to bed, Lana stirred and mumbled something in her sleep. I lay beside her, staring at the ceiling. And for the first time since we met, I felt like a stranger in the same bed. I didn't confront her, not that weekend, not even when she smiled at me over breakfast Sunday morning like nothing in the world had shifted. There was a time when I might have lashed out, demanded answers, let my emotions explode. But this wasn't that time. This time I needed the truth. All of it. with timestamps and evidence. The kind that couldn't be spun or deflected. So I got to work. Monday morning, while Lana left for early meetings, I took a personal day. I called in a favor from a guy I used to know, Jake, an IT consultant who owed me for helping him out of a sticky business situation years ago. I told him what I needed and why. His voice changed the moment I explained. He didn't ask questions. Just said, "Come by." Jake met me at his apartment with a serious expression and a mug of coffee in each hand. I handed over Lana's phone, one I'd pulled from her purse during her shower the night before, and the backup device from her iCloud, which I'd downloaded using her password. "It's encrypted," he said, plugging everything into his system. "But I can get past it." He was quiet for nearly 2 hours, fingers tapping keys like he was defusing a bomb. I paced, sat, stood, paced again. Then he spoke. "There are gaps," he said, "but I found deleted messages. Photos. Travel history. Chat logs." He turned the screen toward me. "Conversations. Names. Dates. Coordinates." The man Alex was all over the threads. Messages marked with emojis. Things like, "I miss your scent" and "next weekend can't come fast enough." Some were short. Others went on like journal entries, her venting about how distant I'd become, how trapped she felt. At one point, she wrote, "He still thinks I'm in Denver. God, I hate lying, but it's the only way." There were photos too. Not explicit. Just an asterisk, mate. Her in the passenger seat of a car I didn't recognize. Her holding a champagne glass with her fingers intertwined with someone else's. A blurry selfie on a beach at sunset, his face turned away, hers pressed to his cheek. And then there were the calendar entries. She'd blocked off entire weekends as work retreats or client off-sites, but the metadata showed check-ins at resorts, coffee shops far from her office, and Airbnb rentals by the coast. I felt it all crashing down again, harder this time because now it wasn't just suspicion, it was a pattern. A system. A life lived behind a second curtain. "I can send all this to a secure folder," Jake said quietly. "Only you'll have access." I nodded, unable to speak. He reached across and placed a hand on my shoulder. "I've seen worse," he said. "But I've also seen guys come back stronger. Just give yourself time." I left his place in a daze, flash drive in hand. I didn't even realize I'd driven all the way home until I found myself sitting in the driveway, engine off, staring at our house like it was foreign soil. I went inside. Lana wasn't home yet. I sat at the dining table, flash drive in front of me, untouched. The weight of everything I had seen was beginning to settle, not just as betrayal, but as mourning. Mourning the version of her I had loved. The version of us that once existed. And myself, the man who didn't see it coming. Later that night, when she returned, she hugged me from behind in the kitchen. "Missed you today," she said. I said nothing. Just nodded. "Everything okay?" she asked, leaning her chin on my shoulder. I forced a smile. "Yeah. Just a long day." She kissed my neck lightly. "Want to watch something tonight?" "Sure," I replied. We sat on the couch, a show playing in the background, her head resting on my shoulder like we were still that couple who held each other after long days. But I was somewhere else entirely. Inside, I was unraveling. That night, I set up the camera. A small, motion-activated device hidden in the hallway bookshelf. It blended in with the knickknacks and picture frames angled toward the front door and stairway. It was something Jake recommended. "If you need to be absolutely sure," he had said. "Footage doesn't lie." The next 2 nights were quiet. Normal, even. She came home, made dinner, chatted about work. We kissed goodnight. Slept in the same bed. And then Wednesday happened. I came home from work around 9 p.m., later than usual. The house was dark. Lana had said she'd be home around 7. No text. No note. I waited. At 10:42 p.m., she walked in. "Sorry, babe," she said, breathless, setting down her bag. Dinner with clients ran long. I asked no questions. I just said, "No problem." She went upstairs to change. The next morning, before she woke up, I checked the footage. The camera had captured everything. At 9:07 p.m., Lana entered the house with a man. Not Alex. Someone else, taller, darker hair, unfamiliar. She greeted him like someone she'd welcomed many times before. They laughed quietly. She touched his arm. They kissed in the hallway. A soft, unhurried kiss. She led him upstairs. The footage stopped there. I stared at the screen, heart thudding, throat tight. This wasn't just an affair. It was a world I didn't belong to. A pattern of deception evolving beyond what I even imagined. I copied the video, labeled it proof_3.mp4 and added it to the fact drive. That morning I was composed. I made us both coffee. Asked about her day. She told me she might have to travel again soon. I smiled. Inside, I felt hollow. I walked out to the porch later that night and sat in the quiet. It wasn't the betrayal that broke me. It was the realization that I didn't know who I had loved. Not really. I stared into the darkness until the sun began to rise. Friday came heavy. There's a strange calm that settles when you've already grieved something still standing in front of you. Lana was in the kitchen, humming some song from the radio, flipping through a weekend magazine. Her hair was tied up, sleeves rolled, acting like it was just another morning. And maybe to her it was. But not to me. Today I wasn't collecting evidence. Today I was the evidence. At 6:32 p.m. I placed the flash drive labeled Fact on the dining table. Next to it, a plain manila folder. Inside were printed *TS, emails, GPS data, and stills from the hallway footage. I'd combed through every piece the night before, reviewed it like a man preparing for trial. Not because I wanted to hurt her, but because I needed her to know I hadn't imagined it. This wasn't suspicion. This was truth. She came in from the garage around 7, setting her purse on the counter and kicking off her shoes. She smiled when she saw me sitting there, hands folded. "Hey, you're dressed up," she said. "Going somewhere?" "Not tonight," I replied, voice low. "We need to talk." Her expression froze just for a second. But it was there. A flicker of fear. She glanced at the table, then back at me. "What's this?" I didn't say a word. She opened the folder. At first, she scanned. Then she read. Then she stared. I watched her lips part, her fingers tense on the paper. I watched the color drain from her cheeks. Watched denial move in slow motion across her face, shifting from confusion to panic to shame. I don't, she began, then stopped herself. She flipped through the pages like someone searching for a fire exit. I didn't interrupt. I let her sit with it. After several minutes, she looked up, eyes glassy. "Jeremy? I can explain. I don't need you to." Her breath hitched. "I know everything," I said. "Alex. The hotel. The other man on Wednesday night. The messages. The camera." I didn't want to believe it. But I do now. I believe it all. She sank into the chair across from me, shoulders hunched, hands trembling over the folder. Tears welled. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. I was lost. I was in. "Stop," I said calmly. "This isn't the part where you explain. This isn't a negotiation." Her mouth closed. She nodded, silent tears rolling down her face. I stood slowly and placed a sealed envelope in front of her. "What is this?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Contact information for a divorce attorney. I've already started the process. I'll file next week." She broke then. Not loudly. Not violently. Just a quiet, shaking sob that broke the stillness of the house. "I never meant to hurt you," she whispered. "I know," I replied. Because that was the cruelest part. I believed her. I truly did. But some things break clean. Others don't break at all. They dissolve. Erode. Disappear by the time you notice the hollow space where something used to be. I left her sitting at the table and walked out to the porch. The door clicked shut behind me with a sound that felt permanent. Outside, the air was thick with Georgia summer. Cicadas droned in the trees. A neighbor's porch light flickered on. And somewhere down the block, laughter spilled from an open window. I sat in the rocker. Stared straight ahead. My thoughts didn't race. They just hovered. Inside, Lana cried. And I didn't go to her. I couldn't. She wasn't mine to comfort anymore. The porch became my shelter. That night, I slept there, wrapped in a blanket that with slats pressing against my back like reminders. I counted stars. Counted mistakes. Counted the moments I had ignored. The instincts I had muted. The questions I hadn't dared ask. By morning, I was still awake. The sun rose over the houses like it always did, casting warm light on the quiet street. But it didn't feel like yesterday anymore. Something had ended. And whatever was next, it wasn't waiting inside that house. 3 weeks passed. I moved into a furnished rental on the edge of Atlanta. Bare walls. Simple furniture. No history. It was the first space in a long time that didn't carry her scent. The quiet was heavy at first, but clean. I could breathe again. The divorce papers were filed without much resistance. Lana didn't argue. Maybe she knew there was nothing left to defend. I'd made it clear. No more talks. No more pleas. No more circular grief. Then came the fallout. One afternoon, while scrolling through the news on my phone, I saw her name trending. Alex's wife, someone I'd never met, had posted surveillance footage of her husband embracing Lana in the parking garage of his workplace. The footage was clear. She labeled it "my husband and his affair partner, both married." This is what betrayal looks like. It spread fast. The video hit a nerve. Comments poured in. Sympathy, rage, jokes. Corporate HR couldn't ignore the mess. An audit uncovered undisclosed meetings, favoritism, misuse of travel budgets. Within a week, Lana was dismissed. She tried to reach out. Emails, missed calls. One voicemail where her voice cracked mid-sentence. I never answered. I didn't block her. I didn't need to. Some things die naturally when exposed to light. I poured my energy into small, steady things. Reading, cooking, long drives without a destination. It was a strange kind of rebirth, this stripping down of life to its essentials. For once, it wasn't about fixing someone else. It was just about surviving without bitterness. And somehow that was enough. 6 months later, I started a new job, design assistant at a university art department. It wasn't glamorous, but it felt good to create again. Honest work, honest hours. That's where I met Claire. She was a digital arts lecturer with a calm voice and quiet curiosity. Nothing about her demanded attention, but somehow she had it anyway. We bonded over film noir and flea market finds. She wasn't trying to fix me. She wasn't filling a void. She was just there. We walked the Saturday farmers market together, talked about foreign cinema, sat for hours in coffee shops without needing to say much. I never told her the full story, not right away. She never asked. She understood that healing doesn't always need to be spoken. And I smiled again, not out of effort, out of ease. The betrayal that once burned inside me had settled into something else. A scar, yes, but one I could live with. It didn't define me anymore. It didn't own me. I wasn't Jeremy who was cheated on. I was just Jeremy, whole, quietly rebuilt, standing in the light of my own life, finally mine to claim.